All right, guys, welcome back to Let the Journey Begin. I am your host, Jason Waller, alongside my co-host, the red-haired Wonder Woman, Hillary Roberts. How you doing, girl?
I'm great.
It's so nice to see you in person again.
Yeah.
This is like a treat. You know, you've been here a couple times. You've been out in Texas basically the last 9 months, you know, so I've seen you twice. I've seen you twice in 9 months, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm great. I'm really excited that today is our 1 year anniversary from our initial podcast.
Is that why you came in person?
Yeah, I had to celebrate with you, bro.
No, it's actually a big deal. I mean, I remember sitting here, Ryan, we're all kind of just like pondering how we're going to put this thing together. And here we are a year later. What an incredible journey it's been.
Yeah, I'm glad I wore waterproof mascara.
Right.
You know me, waterworks over here.
That's a big deal. I mean, we've had a lot of incredible guests. We've heard a lot of incredible stories. We've gone through stuff on the show. So, I mean, it's been a really personal place to open up, become vulnerable, express humility and from not only our guests, but us. And we've learned a lot about each other on this ride. So it's been really, really, really exciting and really cool. And thank you to all of our listeners too for, subscribing, being a part of this and helping us create this movement that, the Red Songbird Foundation is all about, which is a movement and letting you guys know that you're not alone. There is a safe place to go to, and we really pride ourselves on being the safe and most trusted resource you guys can go to when you're, seeking help or guidance or direction. We've been there and, that's why we have the guests that we do. And, I think that's what kind of is amazing on this 1 year anniversary. Speaking of guests, we have somebody that has really been an amazing friend, but also a big mentor.
He doesn't invite you to stuff though.
Yeah, it's okay though. I still respect him. That's how much power this guy's got over me. There's not many people in the substance abuse space, and I've worked and met with a lot of, from literally different countries, all across our country through the States, and he's in the top 2 people that I've ever connected with, and it's funny how this works. So because literally we've stayed in touch over the years, but just as life happens, you kind of separate a little bit, especially when you're not in the same state.
Yeah.
And of all things for you to connect with him.
And then bring him on. Oh, all of our listeners to bring him on as our guest.
Yes.
So somebody else didn't invite somebody to be our podcast guest, except.
No. Yeah. So Hillary ends up. It's so weird, but I was just saying, Rick. His name is Rick Hubbard. He is a legend. He's been in this space for many, many years. He is literally a patriarch in the field. He is very well respected. And a lot of people look up to you, Rick, and I'm just very grateful for you being here, and thank you so much for joining us. We have Rick Hubbard from Origins Behavioral Health. He's the gangster. He's the OG. He's my man.
Okay, but wait a minute. We got to give him a proper introduction. He's the Executive Vice President of Professional Relations at Origins Behavioral Healthcare. This gentleman began working in the addiction treatment industry back in 2002 and has significant experience in multiple aspects of treatment administration. He is also a trained intervention specialist with over almost 20 years of sobriety himself.
Yeah.
Now introduce your...
Rick Hubbard, the man, the myth, the legend, bro. How are you?
Oh, I am just thrilled to be here, Jason. I'm well. My family is well. Life keeps getting better and better. It's a pleasure to be here.
Your wife's doing well, one of my favorite ladies in the world.
She is. Sylvia's doing well. And, the miracle in our relationship is that, she goes to work every day and she comes home. She keeps coming back.
Right. Amen
like
to that, man.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
She loves me in spite of me, and I am truly blessed as a result.
Hey, awesome, man. Awesome. Well, hey, Rick, again, thanks for joining us. But so we're going to kick this off, man. I'm going to jump right into this for you.
All right.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I wanted to be what my parents wanted me to be. My mother wanted me to be a doctor. My dad wanted me to be a football player. And I tried to be all of those things. And at different times in my young life, I even, tried to practice a little pharmacology on the weekends. And
what's that mean, Rick? I think I get that a little bit. Talk to me about that pharmacology, man.
So I began experimenting really, really early. My mother worked for doctors, and she had access to pharmaceutical samples that were dropped off by pharmaceutical reps to the doctor's office, and she brought them home. And she also would bring a physician's desk reference, or a PDR, as some refer to it, which for me, it was an instructional manual. And so I was able to use that PDR to figure out what kind of medications she had in her medicine cabinet. And she had a lot.
Wow.
How old were you when you were being Mr. Einstein with the pharmaceuticals?
15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
And so, I was a pretty bright kid, and I used those skills to experiment and develop peculiar habits that some people would call addiction. I did not consider myself addicted. I just really, really enjoyed taking these medications on a regular basis, and I also enjoyed experimenting with these medications. So I would take the PDR, and I would look up certain medications that she had to see what they would do and how they would interact with other medications.
What is, real quick for our listeners, what is PDR?
Physician's desk reference. It is literally a pharmaceutical instructional manual with pictures and descriptions of medication. So if there was a pill, if you found a pill and you didn't know what it was, you could look in the PDR and match it up with certain identifiers on the medication.
You had blueprints to how you were going to concoct your cocktail.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then I would literally formulate different compounds of medications. I would add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, give it a name, put it in a gel cap, and share it with my friends for a fee sometimes.
That's that generous spirit that you still have to this day.
Hey, on a real, do you remember some of the, is there a medication that you came up with that, just trying to be lighthearted here, do you have a favorite that you concocted?
Yeah, so I would mix Tuinol, which is a central nervous system depressant, with an amphetamine, and then I give it a name. A West Coast Turnaround. West Coast Turnaround was my favorite concoction because it was a combination of stimulants and downers, and it created
you are
quite a
so
buzz.
lucky to be here.
I am. And that is not an understatement. I tried very hard unknowingly to harm myself, to kill myself. And it's only by the grace of God that I'm here today and that I survived that.
So I want to ask you on that. So as you're recreationally doing this, sharing it with your friends, things are going along okay. And then to that statement you just said about almost unknowingly tried to kill yourself. So what happened? What drove you off course? What was the process of that?
Well, there were many factors that, we're talking about the 70s, long before either of you two were born. And,
Keep
this
preaching,
was
brother. I love it.
So this was a time when, we were going through a lot of social change in our nation. I graduated from high school in 1973, and I was really kind of confused as to who I was. I was a pretty decent student, so I hung out with the scholars. I was an athlete, so I hung out with the football players and the people on the track team, and I also liked pharmaceuticals, and so I hung out with the people that smoked pot and took drugs, and so I really was suffering from an identity crisis. At a time when I was only I was maybe one of 40 black kids in a school of maybe 500 to 600 kids. And so, in fact, in my middle school, my first year of middle school was the second year that schools were integrated in Fort Worth, Texas. And so, there was a lot of fear and anxiety around being in a different social environment, wanting to be accepted by everybody. And that created a lot of anxiety. And I can remember at a very young age suffering from anxiety, and the symptoms were pretty profound. My palms would itch, and I would scratch my palms sometimes until they were raw. And I would sweat profusely in certain situations. And, or I would pluck my hair. I would pull my hair out to the point to where I'd have plugs of hair missing in my head. So I was always struggling with some emotional condition that I couldn't quite get control of. But when I put a drink or a drug in my body, then I became, the best looking, funniest piano player,
Right.
which I could not play, but you give me enough of whatever. Then I became at ease with myself. There was a certain ease and comfort and being comfortable in my own skin. And so, I knew very early on that these things, these substances, that they were going to make me feel normal. The first drink I ever took, I was 15. And I remember it so well. My brother Mike, on Christmas Day, I was in a Christmas pageant at my church, and I was really nervous, and my family was going to be there, and so Mike said, "Here, take a drink of this." And after I finished that bottle, it was apparent that I was not going to be one of the wise men that day.
That is so funny.
That is
so we ended up with two wise men that day because Rick didn't show up.
Hey, so there's something though that really stood out to me, like it really resonated with me personally. Is like you said, identity crisis. Was that what you would say is kind of really where your struggle came from? Was just the lack of knowing who you were?
Yeah. I would say I struggled with that for so much of my life, and being conflicted about my behavior and how my behavior was incongruent with the way I was raised. As I mentioned earlier, my parents went to church. Well, my mom went to church. My dad didn't go to church. My dad used to say, "You got to watch those church people. They'll send you to hell every time." And, but I never saw my dad go to sleep at night without getting on his knees and praying. But my mother believed in her boys. She had 5 boys, and she believed in having us go to church every Sunday. And when you worship the church of your parents or your grandparents, at least in my case, that meant that if you do the things that I did, you were going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And so at some point in my life, I just gave up and thought, okay, I'm going to go to hell anyway. Let's get it on. And, life became a party. And, and having said that, I was always able to avoid the consequences. For most of my life, I avoided the consequences. I would always push right up to the edge of disaster or calamity. And then through some miraculous act, through some miracle, I would bypass or get out of the trouble that was facing me. And so that emboldened me, and I would take more and more chances. That's why I mentioned earlier, I tried on several occasions to kill myself because I did some very, very risky things that could have killed me.
Can you give us an example or two? Do you feel comfortable?
Yeah, listen to the concoctions he was making.
That's one. Experimenting with, I would take stuff with no idea as to what it was going to do. In fact, I was the guinea pig for many of these combinations of medications that I was sharing with my friends, sometimes for a fee, and sometimes not. And but
But I think that's an important thing to bring up, though, is
Wow.
because wouldn't you say you were doing that almost to? I mean, that because I can relate to that with alcohol, like doing beer bongs of vodka. I mean, it was more of like, whoa, he's doing that, But was it also a sense of trying to be like the cool guy, trying to fit in?
Sure. A lot of it was trying to fit in. Absolutely, it was. My brothers were all older. I'm the youngest. And my next oldest brother was 5 years older. And that's a huge difference when you're a teenager. When you're 14, 15 years old and your next oldest brother is 19 or 20, the things that they were doing were not the things that a 14 or 15-year-old should do, but I insisted. They couldn't get rid of me. I loved doing what they did. I loved older women and or older girls, and
Yeah.
I would pursue. I didn't chase after 14 or 15-year-old girls. I chased
Yeah.
after 19 and 20-year-old girls. Now, the
Yeah.
older I get, I go backwards now. I go in the other direction.
Yeah. Right.
That's a joke. Hillary, that's a joke. I am
Hey.
married and I love my wife, even though she is
Yes.
15 years younger than I am.
Yes.
Hey, okay, come on now.
But I think that's a very important thing for our listeners, though, is because I think they're in today's world, and especially having nephews at that age right now, the identity crisis is so big. And I think that's something that more that I reflect, you really helped me identify even deeper is that was a real struggle there, and how we would try to relate or try to feel connected to even that older demographic, older brother. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. So I think that's for those that are out there. That's important to really understand and comprehend that.
It can be extremely dangerous if you don't have a real strong role model and guide in your life that can help direct your behavior and your thinking. Because and my brothers all loved me. We all loved each other. And one brother, Don. And we're good friends today. We were at that wedding of my nephew's wedding Saturday night together. Don was really straight and real business oriented, Vietnam vet, and he did not really approve of a lot of this behavior. And he tried to correct that for me. He tried to set me on a path that was more productive. But when you're eaten up inside with fear and anxiety, and chemicals seem to be the only way to medicate that. That's what you do, and that's what I did.
That's right. That's right. So what was the point that you were like, I have got a problem. I've got to do something about this?
Well, that didn't happen until I was 46. And, I had reached a point in life where I had accomplished some things. I'd worked in the banking business for many years, and I'd done reasonably well on the outside. Materially, I had accomplished something. I had a house on the golf course. My wife didn't have to work, and my daughter was in private schools and had a country club membership. And so, to the untrained eye, I had accomplished some success in life. But inside, I was spiritually and morally bankrupt. You hear people say that. It was literally my condition inside. And I knew that I was living a lie. During the daytime, I was a respectable guy. I was a deacon in my church. And at night, I became another person. And I was living this duplicitous life, 2 people. And, depending on my state of mind, I could find myself in that other darkness for extended periods of time, so much so that I wouldn't come home sometimes for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And, my daughter, who adored me and looked up to me, realized that there was something seriously wrong with me. I had gotten to the point to where in my business, by that time I was running my own business. My mother worked for me she was answering the phone. She was my receptionist. She made coffee. And this was after my dad had passed away. So working with her every day, she got to see the truth about what was going on with me. But even she, I think, was in fear of confronting my behavior. Even though she didn't see it straight on, she saw some of the evidence. She saw some of the residual consequences of some of the behavior. But my business started to fail. I started to lose the confidence of my customers. Um, I lost the confidence and the trust of my wife, and she got fed up. And she said, "Hey, listen, we're going to move." And I had trouble with the IRS. I owed the IRS $264,000,
My man.
and yeah.
How old
And
was your
so
daughter? How old was your
my
daughter?
daughter was 16
Ooh.
when that bottom uh, uh, came up really rapidly. I mean, I hit bottom at sufficient velocity. It was not. It was a slow, gradual descent for 30 years, and then for
Mm.
that last year, it was a nosedive.
Mm.
But I'm grateful for that nosedive because that nosedive got me on my knees soon enough to regain the rest of my life because I had destroyed 46 years of it. And I thought my life was over. But my mother and I had moved in with my mom. I was homeless. I had lost everything. And my mother was just totally heartbroken and disappointed. And she looked at me one day and she said, "You know what? I'm not going to preside over your death. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to get out
Mm.
of here and go get help. And I'm going to find." And so she found a place for me to get treatment. And, a friend of hers came and picked me up and drove me to Abilene, Texas. And I went to treatment I went to treatment twice. The first time, May of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't quite buy into the whole concept of complete abstinence for the rest of my life. I thought I'd figure out a way to manage it. And that's all I needed was a reset, and then I could do it right. And I tried that for a little while, and almost a year to the day later, I was back in Abilene on my knees asking God, to remove this obsession or to take my life. I didn't want to live
Mm.
anymore,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for that descent, that rapid descent, because it gave me, it woke me up. It gave me a sense of awareness as to just how far I had fallen. And to give you some perspective, Jason and Hillary, so I
Mm-hmm.
had worked in this bank. My office at one time at this bank was on the 21st floor, and I found myself in 2000 walking the streets of Fort Worth near downtown, looking at that building. And when I say walking the streets, I'm talking about walking
Yeah.
the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that building. It was because it was not that far away. And it was a metaphor for how low I had gone from
Mm.
that
Wow.
21st floor to the streets of Fort Worth, Texas. And there were people that were driving by, going about their business, that knew me, that recognized me. But
Oh.
I was in such a state of oblivion that I had no idea, no concept of what was going on around me. And so when I finally sobered up and left that treatment center, they had recommended that I go into a sober house in Abilene. And
Yeah.
I agreed to do that. They said to me, "You have to get a job." And so I proceeded to go and start applying at banks and insurance companies, and they didn't hire people who had the financial problems that I had, and I wasn't. But I was in such confusion. I went into a bank one time and they did a background check, and I could see people gathering in the background whispering, and they were talking about this guy who would have the audacity to come into a bank and apply for a job with the baggage that I had. So I ended up going to work for a guy in the construction business, working on
Mm.
a concrete construction crew for $5.15 an hour, digging ditches. Literally, that was my job, digging ditches. And
Wow.
so it was in a ditch in Abilene, Texas, that I found the God of my understanding.
Mm.
Well, I think it's incredible. I mean, that journey. One question about that though, do you look back, over that, that 20 plus years of being active in it, and I mean, going through the through the highs and the lows. I mean, you obviously achieved what society says is phenomenal, which is success. You'd kind of made it. You basically, like you were saying, you had the memberships, you had the house on the golf course, you had all this stuff. Could you look back though and identify that? I mean, were you in denial that whole time, or did you know you had an issue, before you did a nosedive? I'm just kind of curious of looking back.
That's a very good question. And so gradually my belief that I had a problem increased more and more. I suspected that I had a problem, 20 years before I realized I had a problem. And
Wow.
as the problems in my life increased to a point to where I couldn't make them go away, I realized how uncontrollable and unmanageable my life was. And so it became apparent to me about 10 years before I actually crashed and burned that, I've got a problem. But, I was running a business. I had 18 to 20 people working for me. I had my mom working for me. I had a lot of people that depended on me. And for me to leave and go away to get help would cause a whole lot of other people harm. So I thought, and what I didn't really get was that not getting help was going to ultimately cause these same people much more harm.
100%.
And I try to, in the work that I do, I try to share that with, men especially, because men have a tendency to look to their obligation to their families as reason not to go and get help. And I will often say that is the reason to get help, because you're worried about hurting them now, you're going to hurt them anyway.
Yep.
This is going to be a less painful option over time. It's hard to convince somebody of that.
That's a very, very, very good point. And I think that kind of is a perfect transition as to, thank you for being so open and raw with that, man. But what I really want to, you've shared so much insight with me, and for our listeners though, how do you stay sober? What is the solution for you? How did you acquire this 20 years?
So, being of service for me has been the means by which I have maintained a level of gratitude. I think it keeps me grounded in a sense of humility. The fact that I survived multiple attempts on my own life is really evidence that God intended for me to live. And if God intended for me to live, I had to find the reason in which he wanted me to live. Why am I alive? I concluded very early on that it was to help others. He didn't get me out of the ditch to go run off to another big house and another country club. He got me out of the ditch so I could reach back in and pull somebody else up out of the ditch. And the minute that, and I believe this with all my heart, the minute that I failed to realize that, the minute that I failed to answer the phone or to step up and be of service, is the minute that he has no more use for me. I am no longer useful. And then it'll be time to go. And I'm not ready to go yet. So I believe it with all my heart that if I'm not useful to somebody else, then I will have no purpose on this earth. So
that is so beautiful, Rick. I have another small question to ask you. How is it with your baby girl today?
That is a great question, and thank you for asking. So she was at my house last night with her boyfriend. She came over she baked me a pie for my birthday. She brought a gift card to Golf Galaxy so I could buy golf stuff. She and I have really turned the corner and have developed, and she's been gracious enough to allow me to make amends in her life and in the life of in her mom's life, because I hurt them both. I hurt them both, and we have a great relationship. So she lives in the house that my grandfather built. in their 40s. I bought that house from my mother's estate, my brother's. I bought it from my brothers, basically. And my daughter and I, in 2018, we rebuilt that house and totally remodeled that house to her specifications without her mom and without my wife, just the two of us. For over a year, it took to this project. And it is one of the most gratifying things that I've ever done in my life. So sorry.
No. It's beautiful.
To have a chance to rebuild my relationship with my daughter.
And your mom got to see you sober.
She did. I took care of my mom for the last, my mom died in 2013, April of 2013. And I took care of her and was almost her primary caregiver for most of those years. And she was very proud of the things that I was able to accomplish in being of service to other people, because she knows a lot of the people that I've helped along the way.
10 years that she was able to see you in that sobriety stint too. I mean, like look at the timing with all that, man. I mean, what a powerful, if you could see us, I mean, we got the goose pimples are going up and down our necks. I mean, just hearing that testimony with your daughter, and that's what, you know, true recovery and true sobriety does for you. And I mean, it's to be able to do and have those types of, I mean, what an incredible living amends, but also a phenomenal memory and a legacy that you've created within that. And it's huge. And I think, what would with the going out on this, if you were to give our listeners one action for the day, what would that be?
One action for the day. Find somebody to help. There's so many people out there that want help, that need help. I pray every day, and it's a prayer I've prayed for almost 20 years now, that God puts somebody in my life that I can help today. And that is what gives me purpose. It gives me a sense of relevance. And, you know, there's always somebody that needs help, and God answers that prayer. I don't pray that God put somebody in my life that's got an Aetna Gold plan with their deductible met, and you know, I don't get into that. I pray that He puts somebody in my life that I can help, and many times those people have nothing. They have absolutely nothing, but they have a desire to live and a desire to get clean and sober. And I consider it an honor and a privilege to be a part of that. And I'm grateful that I've been part of the journey of so many and helping them helping them to get well.
So let me tell you what I thought of early on when you were speaking, Rick. Your childhood dreams of being a doctor and being a football player, you actually you help a lot of people to health as a physician would, and you're a quarterback, and you take the team and you push people forward and you help them make the goal. So you already have both of those.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Hillary. I had never looked at my life that way.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want you to know, Rick, in closing to this, is along with helping people, you've been very instrumental in my life. When I was going through a lot of my stuff, you were a backbone for a lot of the stuff that I went through. And we really look up to you. We're really grateful for you, grateful for all the work that you do and the amount of lives that you impact and that you touch. So we love you, dude. And we really, what a phenomenal interview.
You're a beautiful man.
Yeah.
You're a beautiful man.
You're a rare breed, bro. You're a rare breed.
Well, thank you for giving me a chance to share with you today. And it is such an honor to be a part of this and to see your sweet face. And, you know, you tell Ashley and Delilah that I miss them, and I would love to see you guys soon. And you will not miss any invitations to any events that I put on from this moment forward.
Notice I haven't known you very long, but I'm inviting myself to everything.
Well, Rick, we'll be in touch after this, okay? We will, and
okay.
Thank
Just
you
thank
so
you so
much.
What I'm so all right right now. We love you, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
love
so
you too.
much. Oh my gosh, Jason, he was just incredible. He really pulled my heartstrings, and what a beautiful, beautiful man.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, knowing him for the amount of time that I've known him, and to still see how much I don't know about him too. I mean, there was just so much that was brought to light from him. And I mean, he shared so many valid points. I mean, it was almost like an educational, podcast for me today. And I think our listeners will, get a lot out of him. But just that personal thing of the identity crisis is I've understood that just the way he said it and the way it came out, it really, that's where, talking about the association with friend groups and different things, and kind of, cause I was friends with, I had a very eclectic group of friends, the surfers, the skaters, the popular kids, the jocks, the stoners. I mean, it was kind of like I was friends with all of them but I also was like, it hit me. I was like, wow, like, I was probably dealing with identity crisis way before I even knew it, without even knowing it. So, it really hit home today. Great episode, great show. What a way to hit the 1 year mark and to have somebody that, I look up to so much, and a friend of ours. So
yeah,
great episode.
Thank you everyone for listening in. And where can they find us, Jay?
Go to redsongbird.org if you guys are needing some help, guidance, direction. And we'll be back next week. Make sure to like, subscribe, share. And please comment below if there's anything that you guys want to hear us talk about with future guests. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.